And what is going on, everybody? Welcome on into the Check Your Brain podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, for now, after they hear this episode, probably not too much longer, or on my Rumble page, I appreciate you for watching it and listening to this podcast. My name is Tony Mazur. Good to be with you. This podcast is also out for free on the major podcast platforms. And if you want more nonsense from me, go to patreon.com/Tony Mazur, $3, $5, and $10 tiers. The $10 tier, I give you extra content. $5, there's video. $3, you just get the audio. Good. Or you could just super chat $20 to Kevin Brennan and have him read it 2 hours into his podcast. What's going on, everybody? I am here with the gentlemen from the History Homos podcast. I've got William and I have Scott here. Good to have you guys. I've been following you guys for a while, and finally good to talk to you.
Thanks. Shout out to the $3 Patreon people who only like audio. That's literally me.
Yeah, exactly.
Good to be here, Tony.
By the way, yes, and Scott, I have to say that is that the Bedford flag in the background behind you?
Yes, I had good research. Yeah,
I know
it is the Bedford flag.
Because I'll tell you why. It's right here on my arm.
No shit. Yeah, wow, based.
This is it's my latest tattoo that I had.
Are you from my neck of the woods?
Well, I actually am from a town called Bedford, but it's Bedford, Ohio, which is just
Right.
Bedford, Ohio is one of those towns that people say, "Hey, what happened to Bedford? It was a great town in the 70s." I'm like, "Do you really want to get into it?"
Yeah.
I'll tell you a couple of things about it.
What's Gino Visconti's act?
Yeah, interestingly, that flag, though, refers to Bedford, England, of course, and it was actually made in England, not this one, of course, but the original one that flew at the Battle of Bunker Hill. It was actually an English military, like, militia flag
Right.
prior to the revolution beginning, so that it had like a storied tradition. But yes, it kind of is, like, to me, a symbol of just sort of New England's badassery. I mean,
I was gonna say it's a lot more based than you see the Gadsden flag, but that was kind of taken over by some of those smarmy libertarian, like pot smoking libertarians. Like, don't tread on me, bro.
Yeah. You don't have to insult me to my face, Tony. But no, that was me for quite some time. And as a longtime listener,
we used to have the Gadsden flag.
Yeah, I used to have the Gadsden flag up there before, but I've switched it around. I'm also a big proponent of the pine tree. The pine tree is pretty cool. You're familiar with that one?
A little bit. Yeah, I've seen it. Yes.
Yeah, it's got a John Locke quote on it. It's just pretty cool. I have that.
Like one of the sayings when you're a little kid in England, or when you were a little kid, when I was a little kid, and it got to like 9 o'clock at night or something, the parents would say, "Come on then, young man, it's time to go up the wooden hill to Bedfordshire," which means it's time to go to bed.
Oh, Bedfordshire. Is that like a rhyming?
Yeah.
That sounds like something Orson Welles would say.
Yeah.
Appeal to heaven is it's a John Locke quote. And it's something to do. I don't remember the exact nomenclature of it, but it's something to do with, like, it's your right as a human being to revolt against your government, essentially. So it's pretty fucking based.
Yeah. Shout out Gaza.
Yeah. Shouts out. Yeah.
So we were mentioning about libertarians, and I believe I heard you guys on Pete Quinonez's show maybe like 6 months ago or something.
That's right.
And talking about the path of libertarianism, and my feeling is, because I was also one of those people, especially around Occupy Wall Street. I was raised Republican. I was like a Bob Dole, George Bush Republican. I'm only 35. But so, you don't know any better in those days. Then 9/11 happens. You're like, how can you not support George W. Bush? And then during the Obama years, I got fairly libertarian, pro-choice kind of stuff. And I just realized, I looked back at libertarianism has just failed and failed and failed over and over again. And I like libertarian thought. I like some of the thinkers. I like a lot of the people. It's just in practice, we saw it in 2020 and 2021 with the vaccine mandates and lockdowns. It just didn't seem to work. It just kind of was pie in the sky.
Those guys were also like cucks on all that stuff for the most part as well, because they like to be liked by libtards is part of it, or a good portion of them do. But I was gonna say
it's too much of a broad church, really, isn't it? Because it does have people who are
that's a good point too, as well.
I mean, we've talked about it a lot. How I mean, I always used to say I'm a libertarian, but I'm not really. I'm like a English liberal, as in like a 19th century type English liberal, which basically my point of view is, where do you get the right to tell me what I've got to do? You know, I've got a God-given right to associate with whomever I want, whenever I want, and that's it. End of story. But the American libertarian thing, which it's morphed into, is basically, oh yeah, I've written this treatise on economics that says if people are left alone by the government,
we all make more money.
GDP will go up faster. I'm like, but that's no part of my philosophy whatsoever. I don't give a fuck about GDP. I'm just like, I'll do whatever I want. You can fuck off.
Yeah, and for my part, I've come to see what it became of the liberty movement. And also, by the way, I also want to say that this is equally identical on the left with like the whole social justice sort of thing. It's exactly the same thing, but what it is de-radicalization to get you to stop thinking systemically about this. I think stop you from making systemic critiques of the entire system and be caught up in like this little, it's like a way to get you into culture war things. And like have to have like especially in libertarianism, it's all about having a smart take. And like, it's very fart smelly and pretentious too.
Yeah. It's all the subversion of the Christian message, really. Like that David Gornowski guy, I was put off by his slick internet adverts that he had on all the libertarian TV shows, but then I actually heard him on what's that guy's name, Bob Murphy's show, this Dave Gornowski guy, and he is 100% on the ball. That
He's
guy
queued in.
Yeah
Keyed in.
His take is that everything is influenced by the resurrection of Christ, and that's so true, dude.
It was amazing when I would see libertarians like there were the quote unquote good ones that you would hear about. Dave Smith, you would hear well, Hop is still around, but what was I thinking? Tom Woods and a couple of other people that were really good during COVID, and the rest of them are talking about Austrian economics. And I'm thinking to myself, the whole world is shut down. And you're talking about central bank digital currency. I'm like, I get that. That's very important. All these other things, very important. How about we talk about the fact that the entire country is waiting to hear what their governor has to say if they're allowed to get the mail today?
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I mean, I had my mum, she's dead now, but like I used to go see my mum every week when she was still alive. And one week she said, because I don't watch TV, I don't know what the rule, like the whole, like you said, the whole country of England was watching the TV every Sunday night to find out what the law was going to be next week. Yay, liberal democracy, rule of law. We're going to tune into the wireless broadcast from our overlords, and he's going to tell us whether we're allowed to take the dog for a piss in the morning. You know, it's like, and I was like, I don't care what you say. I'm going to do what I'm going to do. And my mum said to me, oh, you won't be able to come next week because your area is in such and such a category as from this Saturday. And I was like, what? It's just, what, didn't you know that? I said, I don't know what the rules are. And I said, I'll tell you this, mother, I'm going to come and see you next week unless you tell me you don't want me to. And if I get arrested for it, then fine, fuck them. That's what I did. But like, it was insane that people were literally watching it. We're like preaching to Ukraine and saying, oh yeah, fucking Israel's the only democracy in the Middle East, blah blah blah. And yeah, oh yeah, what does rule of law mean? It means you got to tune into TV on Sunday night to find out what the law is going to be next week. Fuck that.
Yeah, and you guys had Boris Johnson, where Boris Johnson was purported to be this, we've got Brexit. He's the Trump of, and what was he doing? He was locking down the entire area while he's having parties. And at the same time, taking the negotiation of Ukraine and Russia off the table, saying, no, you guys got to continue fighting. It's like, what a piece of fucking garbage this guy is.
And he calls himself a libertarian as well. He really does. It's fucking wild.
Well, to be fair, we all were having parties.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Let's not joke around here about it. We were all doing what he did.
Yeah.
Just weren't posting
that's it. The only thing I don't have a problem with him about is, yeah, sure, at least
his hair.
Yeah.
Well, Scott,
they reckon he got COVID twice as well. I think that's just he's fat.
And Scott, I'll ask you, when it comes to other politicians in our country, is we have this RFK thing, and his candidacy, or whatever you want to call this, is just it's bizarre.
I didn't pay attention to it from the start because I knew he was good friends with Shmuley Boteach from the jump. And I will say this, I just want to get out in front of this. The RFK book, excellent book. Read the RFK book. Read the what is it called? The Real Dr.
Real
Fauci?
Anthony Fauci.
Yeah, there you go. Read that book. It's good. It's filled with good information.
It's incredible. Like the thing, that book tells you that all that shit that got our backs up about, oh yeah, we're just gonna rush this bullshit through and tell you it's safe for pregnant women.
Halfway through the book, he's like, AIDS isn't real.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding.
But what the book really tells you that, yeah, this COVID shit, that's nothing new. This has been going on for years. That's
right.
All the, you know, how you feel about COVID vaccines. Yeah, they're all like that.
Basically. But anyway, so yeah, I will say that. I gotta say that. But I just knew what he was all about. He's obviously owned. He's like, wasn't he hanging out with Epstein and shit? Like, yeah.
Oh yeah, he admits
they're
it.
all, yeah. They're all fucking. This is the thing. He also let's also get this straight. Israel killed his dad and uncle. He's not going to fuck around if he wants to be a public person. He has to play by the fucking rules. He knows what happens to you if you fuck around. He's just so him doing that thing. It's all good, man. I wasn't gonna vote. I will never vote again as it stands.
Yeah.
I voted for Trump in 2016, and I haven't pulled the lever since because I was immediately disappointed.
I haven't voted since Ron Paul in 2012.
Based.
I was Ron Paul guy. And you know what the funny thing is about the whole you mentioned about JFK, because that's kind of funny. I wanted to actually talk about that with somebody, and finally you brought it up before I even thought about it, is the whole JFK thing about Mossad. Yeah. And I've mentioned this to people saying JFK, RFK, that this has a little bit of Mossad, and you don't hear anything about it. What happened to all these papers and these documents that were coming out?
We're going to find documents, out, people.
You know, the Warren Commission, we're going to find out what really happened. And then you start going, yeah, this very well could be Mossad, and that's the reason why we're not hearing about it. And then now you're starting to find out people like Gad Saad is Mossad, and Ben Shapiro and all them. Oof.
That's a big, well, obviously Ben. I mean, like, it's not a big deal about Ben Shapiro. Is it?
Yeah, Ben Shapiro's like, yes, okay, cool. Now we knew what he was all along. I'm not offended by that. He wears if they wear the hat and they're being put in front of you, pretty good chance they're connected. But anyway, I was gonna say though, with specifically for anyone listening who's interested in the real truth about JFK and RFK, to a lesser degree RFK, but we have a good first of all, listen to our episodes on it. They're pretty good. Yeah. But if you really want to actually, what we got our information from is the book Final Judgment by Michael Collins Piper, and also a friend of the show. Which is
free on the internet. You can
free
get
on the internet.
PDF of
no
it for
excuse
nothing.
not to read it. Yeah. And also friend of the show, Corey Hughes was a friend. He's been on our show twice, and he wrote a book that we read and reviewed called what is it called? What's the actual title of it? A Warning from History.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
A Warning from History. And that is like it's I gave it to my father-in-law who's like a normie, like pretty much, and he was like
I like this production.
Nice. Yeah,
look at that. I'm a regular Compound Media. I'm regular Garrett and Steve.
Hell yeah.
But so I gave these books to my father-in-law, who's just like a normie, and he was just like, you sold me. He's like,
It
I
takes
was
a little bit.
Yeah.
ambivalent about it before, sort of, but I read the books, and you know what? I can't argue with this evidence.
I'll tell you what is interesting though. I don't know how far you've got with this, because Scott and I are currently reading another book. We're reading Citizen Cone, which is about political
Oh, are we have to
operative
start
Roy
that? I
Cohn.
haven't started it yet. I will.
I've read it.
Okay.
And yeah, Bobby Kennedy does not come out of that smelling of roses, let me tell you.
No, that's a bummer.
Wait, hang on a second. You guys do show prep? You don't just go on YouTube and hit the go live button and you go, hey guys, we're doing a podcast today.
Yeah.
No, we put an immense thank you for prompting us. This is one of the things that we would like to a theory we would like to espouse. Which is what we like to call, and readers of Adam Smith will recognize this, but the podcast labor theory of value, which is that because we put a lot of work into the show to prepare for and actually execute it, we deserve a lot of money for doing it.
Yeah.
You got no, seriously, you guys really do a very thorough work, and you put a lot into these. I've listened to your podcast.
Yeah.
I still have a lot to do, because that's the one thing that a lot of people want to do timely stuff. But you guys will really delve into something and say, yeah, no, we're not going to do timely. We're going to do something from 70 years ago. And it still works. And you can go back and listen. There's a lot of re-listenability. So I really do encourage people. That's why I was happy to get you guys on the podcast to help promote this, because I think you guys need way more listeners. You guys have pretty good base anyways, but you need to have more listeners. And I want more people to go and listen to history, not bullshit about Super Bowl and stuff like that.
Or also E-drama.
We make it kind of, it's not that we're like wacky or anything, but like we have a
good time
kind of we've got a dark sense of humor, and I mean, I wasn't even a conspiracy guy of any description when we started this show like 4 years ago, but if you spend it took about 18 months, I reckon. If you spend 18 months researching a different topic in history every week, and then we basically just bullshit about it on the show and try and
make jokes about it, honestly.
I try and be funny at all times, which I'm,
well,
sometimes
with you not...
every so often it hits, and but you can't research a different topic every week without becoming a conspiracy guy, because you start to see where all these different topics join up, and we don't do them in chronological order or anything. It's just like, this is an interesting one. This is an interesting one. Let's do this. Let's do this. Let's do this. And by about 18 months of doing that, I was like glowing red eyes. And
now I'm going to give you a softball here, because you said that you weren't a conspiracy guy until you guys started doing the podcast. I'll ask both
Scott
of you.
I was me. I'm big time. Oh yeah, I'm OG.
So I'll ask William first. What's in your research and since doing the podcast, what would be your favorite conspiracy theory that's not the cliche, the MK Ultra type of stuff, the Operation Northwest, even though those are true, but they were considered conspiracy theories of the time? What is your favorite that you've really researched?
The book Program to Kill by Dave McGowan completely changes the way you see the world if you read that. Because I mean, it's not a conspiracy theory; it's literally just facts from start to finish, and it's not anti-Semitic, so anybody can read it and have a good time.
But do I get the answer now? Okay, yeah. So my answer is and William, you're gonna love this, but what we just found out about how the NSA and the is it called like the Office of Security, whatever, the like the Air Force, FBI, basically. I don't know what the actual acronym is called, but they had a program to make fake aliens to gaslight a bunch of alien hunters, because they had accidentally stumbled on experimental aircraft. And they went so far as to like kidnapping people and forcing them to take acid, a la like MK Ultra. And
they built an entire Air Force base just to
designed to look like it's aliens. Built it
just to fool one guy into thinking that aliens were real, to drive him crazy.
literally
is this what I'm looking at, or is this a different one?
This is a different one.
Okay.
But what's the guy's name? William. We were supposed to do an episode on him semi-recently, but there was a guy. I remember what the movie is called. I think. Oh shit! Damn it! Oh, I feel like shit because
the other great thing to read is this: The Killing of Uncle Sam is like it's got an alternative. It's got what I think is probably the real history of World War One, which is where all this bullshit that we're in now comes from.
That's true.
That's well worth reading. The Killing of Uncle Sam by Rodney Howard Brown and Paul L. Williams. I think that was really what changed my worldview first, and then put a little program to kill on top of that, and you'll be done.
You'll be cooked.
It's funny you mentioned World War One because I always think about this in school, and I think one of the reasons why podcasting and exploring in this new media universe is so big is that you have an opportunity to go and find things that you weren't taught in school. And I always found it funny about U.S. history in junior year of high school. Usually would be, you'd start off, you'd hear about 1492 and Columbus, the racist, sailed across America, and then 1620. Then immediately it's the Revolutionary War. Then you skip ahead to the Civil War, and then we skip ahead to World War II, and then Vietnam, and then the present day. And then, it's finals, and it's time for the end of the school year. Have a good summer, everyone. And you never hear enough about World War One. Why we got into it in the first place. What's the purpose? What would have happened if the United States was not dragged into World War One? And Woodrow Wilson and his presidency and everything. You just didn't hear about it. We really did go from Civil War to that guy with the mustache in the Austrian painter, and you're like, wow, we really skipped ahead about 70 years without thinking two things about it.
The fucked up thing about that specifically is that prior to World War One, America was going buck wild with wars. Actually, the Spanish-American War was nuts, dude. Mm-hmm. We basically conquered all of the former Spanish territories for America and then sold them to corporations, essentially, and then made puppet governments built around the corporations, essentially. And they did this in every country in South America, essentially. And it's still like that today, and to some extent, that's something nobody fucking talks about at all.
You really do have to understand the preamble to World War One, because that's what's playing out right now. Like I said when this Ukraine thing first kicked off, didn't I, Scott? I said, well, when this turns into World War III, I'm going to call it World War One Part 2. Because the run up to it is exactly the same. Everything that's happened in the lead up to World War III, as regards Russia and Ukraine, is exactly the same. It's a few different characters, but the same action. And
but Russia's Germany this time.
Well, Germany's also Germany, because look at what's happening to Germany. Like all three world wars have been provoked by.
Bro, wouldn't it be so sick if they go Nazi again? They're getting pretty close right now. That would be so sick. Who would have fucking predicted that? I know it's a little.
You'll be able to wear that hat again.
They start growing mustaches.
You've had that hat in the wardrobe for so long, and you just haven't been able to wear it.
Yeah, well, I got a couple other things too kicking around. No, but I'm not kidding though. They are actually going pretty far right, not explicitly Nazi or anything, but they're I don't know. I could see them getting provoked into some who knows, man. The reality is much stranger than any fiction you can.
Well, they keep on saying that they're uncovering Nazi plots in Telegram chats that are full of senior government officials and senior police people and all that kind of shit, don't they?
Yeah.
But whether that's true or not, who knows? You can't believe what governments say. They're all.
Do you remember the time recently where they were like, "Oh yeah, a guy who's a descendant of the Archduke of such and such, such and such a state in Germany, was conspiring to seize the fucking government and claim status as emperor semi recently. But who knows? There's probably another one of those Michigan militia.
If a German
Gretchen Whitmer kidnapping fed op things.
If an old imperial German family takes over again, I guarantee you it'll be the Coudenhove Kalergis.
It's just amazing because I think about World War I all the time, of the military industrial complex and how Woodrow Wilson started all these 3-letter agencies, and why we're still over 100 years later paying for it. Yet all we're here in school is we hear about Mustache Man, and we hear about that's about it. And that's why every argument is so-and-so is Hitler. So-and-so is acting like Hitler. So-and-so is acting like Nazis. And it really just boils down to we're being taught so little about actual history. And the history we collectively learn about is either untrue or like completely untrue, or it distorted in a way that's palatable, I guess, for younger audiences, or maybe the teachers are just retarded.
Well,
that's definitely true.
Yeah. on our premium show that comes out like now.
It just came out before us recording it. Yeah.
So it's like 2 weeks ago as this goes to air, I guess. But
sure.
But we just did a review of the movie Threads, which is like an English fear propaganda nuclear war movie. It's pretty good, not gonna lie.
I enjoyed it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you get like it's got the plot of how World War III breaks out, and it's fucking hilarious to watch it from
today's eyes,
2024 perspective, because in the movie the war breaks out because and I think the writers had a pretty good hold on how it was going to happen back then. So this is from 1984, and in the movie this is how the war breaks out is America does a coup, like a counter revolution in Tehran, right? So there's the CIA sets off a revolution against the Islamic Revolution in Iran to reinstall the Shah.
Who would have thought they would do something like that?
Yeah, right. And which is something they've literally been trying to do ever since 1979.
Yes.
And so the Russians send their troops into the Arabian Peninsula and into Iran in order to counter this action, and so and that's when then the Americans use a battlefield nuke on them, and it all like snowballs from there. But it's just bizarre that in this movie the Americans are going, no, you can't have troops in the Middle East, or we're going to have troops in the Middle East. Meanwhile, right now we're supposed to think that Russia is this horrendous imperialist power, and yet who's got troops in the Middle East, bro?
Who's got troops literally everywhere on Earth, dude?
Yeah. It's fucking wild.
Yeah, that's what's interesting about when you talk about World War III, because one can make a distinction that already occurred. That we've already seen the Archduke Franz Ferdinand.
Yeah,
we saw this in Syria and Libya during the Obama years. That we've been provoking this. Hillary Clinton, then eventually the Victoria Nuland and John McCain go over to start this coup in Ukraine 10 years ago, and we saw what's going on the last 2 years. So we can. But just like they were saying with inflation, where we heard two quarters of negative growth equal inflation, then we have 2 and more quarters of negative growth, and they say, well, not technically. So we're just changing the rules and the definitions all at once.
Well, first of all, every single news story goes like that goes through 3 stages, which is 1, no, don't be ridiculous. It's a conspiracy theory, the idea that might happen, whatever it is, and then they say, well, yeah, it's happening, but it's not going to last.
It's not a big deal. Don't worry about it.
It's only transitory. And then the 3rd stage is, yes, it is happening. Of course it's happening. It's good.
It's a good thing.
See The Great Replacement, see fucking, the heart problems going on and shit like that.
The world is healing because professional athletes are dropping dead.
And the other thing with the amount of these wars that are breaking out, and it's you're seeing this on social media, the hashtag the noticing, and people are starting to notice patterns, or at least putting it together. And they really,
I think didn't Steve Saylor just put out a book called The Noticing?
he put something out recently. I do know that. And he's been talking about that when you're looking at crime statistics, when you're looking at who's running certain industries, including the porn industry and the war industry and the COVID industry and everything. When you're seeing a lot of this, and I think especially since October 7th, people are starting to piece things together a little bit and going, wait a minute, I've been lied to over this time, thinking that America was always the good guys. The West were always the good guys. And you're even seeing it to the point where TikTok had that thing a couple of months ago where they're going, that Osama bin Laden letter, he made some good points. Yeah. You got to hand it to that Osama bin Laden guy.
He really did. I mean, like he'll have had some interns working for him, right? Who were switched on, I guess.
I think he's been dead since 2000. Okay, but I mean, obviously the letter may have been real or whatever. But here's the other fucking thing. Like, we already know the reality of what went down in 9/11. And speaking of noticing things that are inconvenient, by the way.
Come on, man.
I'm just talking about who was dancing in a fucking car park in New Jersey, man.
Yeah. Who were the people who got arrested on the day?
Yeah, exactly. Who are the people driving a box truck filled with explosives over the Brooklyn Bridge on 9/11 at 9:30 a.m. and had $4,000 stuffed in their pants? And
why do you know that, Scott?
Why do I know that? Well, I have a keen interest in history.
Well, but people are waking up to this stuff, though, and they're piecing things together that, and I think a lot of people have woken up and realized, wait a second, I haven't been told the full story. I don't know the full story of Oklahoma City. Who else was there? This couldn't have just been Timothy McVeigh, a guy angry over Ruby Ridge in Waco.
Yeah, that's
that
really
decided to have this bomb.
That was a biggie.
I mean, there's all these things that are popping up because of the internet and because of podcasts like your guys to talk about these things of. Guys, like we need to have discussions, and if we're not going to have, and I say this on Twitter all the time and on my podcast, if we're not going to have discussions, if we're not going to be serious about this, then we're just bitching, we're just raging, and until we find a solution, it's just going to continue. It's the same as the gun situation that just recently about the Super Bowl parade in Kansas City. It's the fucking guns, it's the guns. No, it's the people behind the guns. And here's a disproportionate statistic that's not going to go in your favor. So unless we're going to talk about this right now, then shut the fuck up.
All I've got to say about this Kansas City parade thing is, come on, Philly. What can you do? This is like, it's taken the crown from Philadelphia.
So true. So true. And hey, Boston, you know what? I'm actually, no, this is fucked up to say. I will say this. There's an upshot on this, is that now Boston does not have the most lethal victory parade of any sporting event.
Right.
Which it did hold the title for, I believe, before.
This is our fucking city.
Yeah.
It was David Ortiz.
Yeah. But yeah, and then I believe a girl got shot in the face by a less than lethal round by a cop during the riot or whatever, a white girl, and everyone was fucking distraught over it. What's that, William?
Did it turn out to be not less than lethal?
Yes, it turned out to be. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Point blank, go figure, a less than lethal round does not, there was a reason why they call it less than.
It turned out that it was mislabeled. It turned out to be lethal.
Yeah.
Sorry, it said less than
Bugs
lethal.
Bunny didn't Bugs Bunny in the factory didn't hit it with a hammer, and it did explode, I guess.
The Acme Corporation.
If only she'd have thought to put a finger in the end of the barrel, then the gun would have just exploded, and the guy would have been just had a black face with a cross of sticking plasters on his forehead.
It's so true, honestly.
Well, are we noticing these things? That's what I'm wondering. Are people?
Well, some people
are the normies waking up?
Yeah,
I think you can get it. There are guys doing serious research, and we're lucky enough to get some of those guys on our show. Like,
right.
I mean, if you ever want to do a show about Oklahoma City, you could do no better than get our friend Richard Booth on the show.
Oh, he's great.
And he's such a pro. He won't talk about anything, but because he doesn't want to, like, we'd have him on the show because he's a great guy as well. He's a really cool guy to talk to. It's so easy to have him on the show. But like, really, he only wants to talk about that because that's what he's an expert on.
That's his beat.
He doesn't want to, if you have a private conversation with a guy.
Yeah, he and I were discussing PC gaming at length.
Yeah. But he won't appear on the show and talk about that because he doesn't want to diminish the value.
Sully his image as a expert.
There's a guy like him and Corey Hughes. There are loads and loads of independent researchers out there who get in deep, and they're not. I mean, they're not just like going, "Oh, I reckon aliens must exist because whatever." They're not that kind of
Neil deGrasse Tyson tier bullshit.
Yeah, these guys.
A lot of autism.
Get into the weeds well, I think autism's a conspiracy theory. That's my rash statement I'm gonna make for this show. Isn't that what basically
didn't Dennis Leary say that? He said that autistic kids are just kids that came from like divorced parents, and the kids just fucking around.
Well, who did he steal that from?
Yeah, I think Bill Hicks said that in 1988.
There we go. All right, yeah, that sounds more like it.
No, I mean, RFK talks about it as well. He says, well, there's no autistic kids at school when I was at school, and he's right about that. But it's not just that there are more autistic kids; it's that there's a certain kind of woman who, if their little boy displays typically male characteristics of not really being interested in school, but really, really being interested in trains or something, they'll go, oh, well, it used to be they'd go to the doctors and pester the doctor until they got a diagnosis of something so that they could give him drugs to make him go to fucking sleep. But now it's become so entrenched as such a moneymaker that it's like, oh yeah, and any boy who isn't borderline trans must be autistic. Because this kid's displaying male awkwardness characteristics.
And a keen interest in something specific.
Yes.
Fixation, even.
And everybody, like, especially in the world of podcasts, they all say, oh, I've got OCD. I've got this. Yeah. I don't even know what they all are. What's the other thing everybody says they've got? OCD.
Asperger's?
No. But yeah, you haven't got that. You just like people say, "Oh yeah, I always wash the dishes straight after I eat because I've got OCD about it." No, you're just a normal person.
Yeah, just
you're
have supposed
to wash the dish. Yeah, you're supposed to wash the fucking dishes after you eat.
I had a salad for dinner tonight. I ate a salad, a baked potato, and a steak. I ate the salad first. I had the baked potato next, and the steak, and I didn't mix the two. I have that as an OCD. Am I going to have to be on Adderall because I eat one portion at a time? No, because
you take Adderall before you help somebody move.
Exactly. You snort it or you swallow it. What's the best way?
Because it has a longer release.
That's right.
Is there anything worse in life than helping somebody else move?
No, I wager no.
Because like that morning where you've agreed to do that, you wake up and you go, my day off. Wait a minute. What? Why did I say? I reckon if nobody ever got drunk, nobody would ever agree to do that.
I'll be honest. I just passed 3 years sober. Yeah, I have not helped anybody move since then.
There you go.
You've got because all they do is repay you in pizza and beer.
Yeah, it wouldn't be worth it. Pizza? That's so cheap.
But I mean, I get it. Like, I think it's a nice thing to do for a friend, the impulse to help somebody move, because the reason you want to help your friend move, it's like a deeply sort of Christian impulse that you've got sympathy with this guy. Moving house is one of the worst things that ever happens to you in your life.
True.
And so you go, well, okay, I'm going to go and share my friend's misery. But then when it's the day where you've actually got to do it, that's a totally different ballgame from the day when you say, yeah, sure, I'll help you.
But you got to make sure it's like the big stuff. You got to get the couches and the tables and stuff. You don't want them looking at your possessions. I especially don't want some random people going through my bookshelf and going, is that the Unabomber's manifesto? Yeah, don't worry about that. Just put it in the bookcase. We're good.
Well, that's another great. That's another seminal work. That's a great book to read.
Great book, yeah.
Doesn't take long.
I scared my wife with that, where I said, it was a couple of years ago during COVID. I remember going like, I've been reading the Uncle Ted's manifesto, and he makes some good points. And she said, "Why am I married to you?"
Yeah.
Well, it's
you'll get used to it.
He really is getting traction with the normies. I get my I live in the countryside, and I just went and saw this guy that I'm talking about now today, because I ran out of potatoes, and I went to the potato farm to get some potatoes, and they didn't have any bagged up, so I was just picking them out of the grader and putting them in a bag. And he's talking, and we started talking about Uncle Ted again. But yeah, it was sometime during COVID I was there getting potatoes.
And he just brought up apropos nothing, fucking
because it was because he says, "Oh, you look like a Unabomber in them glasses."
Oh, right, okay, yeah.
And I says, "Oh, thanks." And he goes, "Yeah." He says, and then we just started talking about it. And
you ever read that book?
Yeah, he's literally a potato farmer. He just goes, "Yeah, I've read it. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, doesn't it?"
So what did you have to say this time? You don't have to dox or anything, but
no, we were just picking potatoes out of the grader and chucking them into a bag. And he said something. I just made a passing reference to it, and it made him laugh. I just said, "Oh, whatever it was that he said." He says, "Oh yeah, well, I mean, Ted Kaczynski would know what to do about that." And he goes, "Yeah."
I that happened during COVID. Was I was really getting into Pinochet, and I know you guys did a podcast on it. It was really good. And
thank you.
No, it wasn't.
Well, I
got a lot of traction.
Because during COVID, I kept thinking about all these communists, and I go like, well, every so often a helicopter ride wouldn't be bad. And I have a lot of normie. It's weird because I'm in this universe, and I'm all these podcasting, and I'm so deep into just full on paleo conservative all the way to far right wing stuff, to the point where I just think everybody knows about Pinochet, and everybody knows about what Bukele and Javier Milei, and they're just like, I don't know who these people are. So I started bringing them up after a couple of drinks about the helicopter rides, and some of my friends are like, "You think that's okay? You think it's okay to throw your opposition out of helicopters because you disagree with them?" And I'm just like, how much time do you have?
Yeah, yeah. Because I mean that's. I mean, I get it. I don't think it's okay, because I mean I try to be a Christian, and I think that killing people is wrong, basically.
Especially when the CIA kind of put you up to it.
Yeah. But I get the general principle bit. It became, who was it? It's the guy you named your rabbit after, isn't it?
Hoppe. Well, I didn't name. I kind of named him after. But yes, Hans Hermann Hoppe. You mentioned before, Tony. But he was the one who I think I don't know that he actually name checks Pinochet in the book, but he says something to the effect of
removal from society.
Yeah, you need to remove certain undesirable elements if you're to have an agreed upon society where everybody acts in accordance with private property rights. It's okay to kick people out who aren't with the program, basically, is what it was. And a lot of people memed that to be Pinochet chucking people out of helicopters. Yeah,
that's where it got its currency, isn't it? That really, so you can blame your rabbit for that, Scott.
Well, and then we didn't have Pinochet here, but we did have McCarthy. And I swear to God, every day I see people on Twitter going, "Yep, I think Joe McCarthy was railroaded."
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I was totally on board. I was exactly where you are, Tony, until last week when I read this book about Roy Cohn. Dude, that whole fucking... I mean, the thing is, whatever the government does, even if it's... And I think that was a good cause. I get it. And I think there's a widespread acceptance that there was a need for that at the time. But the way it was done was absolutely fucking disgusting. And gay as well. It was
literally gay.
It was literally gay. It was like everything that the government touches turns to shit. And like, because... Well, I don't know why.
I gotta read this book. Fuck.
Yeah, so the because this Roy Cohn guy was a lawyer of sorts, and he was the lead counsel on the McCarthy thing, right? And basically, they just blackmailed people, and the whole thing was just grift. The
Hell
whole
yeah.
communist witch hunt was purely political, in that, like, with a small p. It wasn't about
Yes,
finding communists, really. It was just like, okay, we've got this is fucking subpoena power. What can we do with it?
That's crazy. There
yeah,
really
but
is another side
it's
to
like
every story, dude.
yeah, what basically what I mean, the book doesn't even really go out of its way to make this point. It's just my reading of it was like,
Yeah.
oh man, this stinks. But it would do, wouldn't it? It's like like whatever you give any kind of like legal police sort of authority
Dude,
to do.
I was just gonna say I have
it.
a perfect analogy for it, and you'll love this ref for this anecdote too. But
Yeah.
in Imperial India, when it was the Empire of like the Royal, British Empire of India.
Can we just have a moment of silence to think of my Burmese railway station for a moment? Right,
yes. Anyway, but during that era, they had a real problem with king cobras.
Right.
And the English authorities there were like, we have to do something about these king cobras. I know what we'll do. We'll make a bounty on every king cobra. We'll give you whatever amount of rupees.
Rupees,
yeah.
We'll give you a token, a shit street shitting token.
Yeah, but so you think that
for every
problem,
king cobra,
right?
for every king cobra you get, you can incinerate a widow.
Right. No, you can curl out one cobra of your own wherever you like.
Yeah.
A brown snake, if you will.
Yeah. A curb cobra.
But what was I gonna say? So yeah, you'd think that like incentive structure would, we get rid of the the king cobra problem, wouldn't you, Tony?
One would think, right?
One would think, right? But what happened was the Indians just started breeding king cobras.
I love Indians, dude.
That rocks. Honestly, they're still up to it. They're still up to that shit, dude. So they started breeding king cobras, and of course, there was no less. In fact, there was more king cobras numerically speaking.
I like it. Also, there's Indian guys who can like disincorporate their body in, say, Rawalpindi and have it appear 5 seconds later in New Delhi, reassemble the pieces and just be somewhere else. They can travel in the astral plane. Some of these Indian gurus.
Why don't they just do that to like a girl's locker or like a women's gym locker room in America?
Sure that's exactly what they do, bro.
do emphasis on do.
Well, I actually have to wrap up the podcast here in just a couple of minutes, but I want to ask both of you, and I really appreciate you coming on. And with your knowledge of history, of obviously history and what's going on in the present, I don't want to say predict the future, but I guess where do we go in the West? How do we improve this? I mean, the immigration seems like it's pretty out of control. Does that have to be curbed? Is it a cultural thing? Is it a defense thing? Like what? I guess in a and just within a couple of minutes, how would both of you try to improve the West here?
Well, I think Scott and I have slightly different takes on this. I have a very simple take on it, which is it's not my job to say that. I don't know.
It's not far from where my take is either.
Because we have a fairly schizoid following, and a number of those are like white nationalists or whatever, and like if you can't see that isn't going to end up just as bad as this, then I don't know what to tell you, bro. I think it's hopeless. But well, except for one thing, I think here's what you can do. You can accept the resurrection of Jesus Christ and just try and live a good life yourself. And if enough people start doing that, then everything will be all right.
Well, Martin Luther King didn't, or I should say Michael King, he did not accept the resurrection. So and he became a preacher.
Right.
Michael King, I didn't do it. He wasn't Martin Luther?
No. Can you believe that?
Well, why was he Junior then?
He's a big fan of Ken Griffey, I think. I don't know.
I must be, yeah.
Well, like having Junior at the end is a bit like having Lee in the middle, isn't it? It just makes you seem fancier.
Yeah, right. Esquire, he might have been in another life. To answer your question, though, I'll say this: I don't have any actionable. I don't have any call to action for sure. I'll say this though: I think this system is rotten. It deserves to be destroyed. Yeah. Not only and I hope to God every day that it collapses. And in its stead, I hope that we can build connections with people of a like mind, so that when we rebuild, maybe we could have a stake in it, perhaps.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, that is the thing to do, is to actually know some people who live near you and like be kind to people.
Yes.
And all that. You don't have to be like politically on the same page with all the people that you cooperate with, but there are things that, like, I mean, and I think that the whole COVID thing was a good lesson in that. It made me do it. So when the schools closed, I was like, yeah, because I got a little girl, and I was just shocked that all the other parents at the school like set up this WhatsApp group, and so like day one, I sent a message to it that's like, okay, well, we're going to go to the park and play on the swings for a bit if anybody wants to join us. And it's just like crickets. Nobody would do it because they were all rule obeyers. What you got to do is find a community of people who aren't like that. And so that was what made me do that. And now my little girl doesn't go to school now. We homeschool with a load of people who next time it happens, we'll just ignore it.
Then you start a foundation. Because I think that's the one thing what you were mentioning, Scott, was that you have these institutions. And I think one of the ways of looking at it from a white pill or a black pill perspective is which institutions are worth preserving and which ones are you fine with burning it down. And you have the anarchists who are going to say, it doesn't matter if it's worth saving, burn it down anyways. You have more of like the blue pill normies would say, well, you know what? These have been around for a while. FBI. We should preserve them.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's like, I mean, in a from a Marxist perspective, that would be a revolutionary versus a liberal, kind of thing. So do you think it's a reformable system? I don't, frankly.
I don't
think there's no reform way.
Well, history tells us that reform never works.
Always reverts. I mean, Uncle Ted, we were just talking about him. Uncle Ted has this really cogent part of the manifesto where he says that all reform movements are temporary. They will revert back to the mean, because that's just the march of history kind of thing. And especially when it comes to technology. And that's another problem too. I mean, a lot of people, I frankly don't have the kind of fear of like computers and AI, because I just don't think it has like the spark of creation.
Yeah. What does AI stand for, Scott?
Actual Indians.
Yeah, actually Indians.
Whenever you're talking to an AI, it's actually an Indian guy for 2 rupees an hour. Is doing whatever, is drawing that himself.
Yeah. And when you see like the thing spinning around, it's thinking that's it. He's just wiping his ass.
I didn't know they do that.
No, they don't actually. But they make them if they want to work as AI, because those offices are crammed. There's a lot of work.
They wipe their ass on a passing rat.
So basically, it's kind of that 10,000 Liechtensteins thing, where it's you build through your community. You forget, you don't care who the president, you don't care who the prime minister is. It doesn't really matter. You care about
it doesn't matter anyway. It doesn't
family and community.
Yeah, as if you have a fucking say anyway. So yeah, I'll here's my William. You had a radical take on this. I said this on our show already, but I'm officially making the prediction, and you can all at me at Scott Lizard Abrams ever on all social media if I'm wrong, but I'm predicting formally that Trump will be the next president.
Yeah.
And it's all scripted.
Based. I hope
it's all part of the plan.
Yeah. Just for an entertainment perspective.
Is that because Joe Biden's going to keel over? Is it because or is this just one of those things that it will help embolden the media again?
I think it's because Joe Biden, for whatever optical reasons, or perhaps it's not Joe Biden himself. He doesn't even wipe his own ass. But I mean, you know, the people who actually run his administration or whatever, they, for whatever reason, don't like the optics of going to war against Iran. And Trump will have no problem doing that. And our greatest ally needs us right now in their
And
opinion.
also, that faction doesn't want to be at the wheel. They want Trump to be at the wheel when World War III starts, I think.
Exactly. And then, yeah, so then they can wipe their hands of the whole Trump thing. And then once it's an
we
absolute
told you.
quagmire.
Told
yeah,
you.
good point. And also, once it becomes an absolute quagmire with literal deaths in the double-digit millions, which it will be if we go to war with Iran, they will be able to go, well, geez, Trump's not so much of a fucking dove after all, is he?
Yeah.
And then also another thing is they'll be able to run on no war again afterwards. And then once they get in, they'll just do more little wars secretly like Obama did.
And if we go to war with Iran, will Lindsey Graham be in Washington, D.C., or will he be at a bathhouse as he watches this?
He'll just come.
Both.
Well, you know, he'll be floating above Washington, D.C. because the cum will be making him shoot into the sky.
Yeah, it'll be shooting out of his ass so fast. he'll be tight like a balloon.
William, how do you
black guys come?
How do you look at Joe Biden? Like, is Joe Biden as much of an embarrassment? Because look, I get it. He's a puppet, but is he as much of an embarrassment as we think he is over there?
I don't think I ever heard anybody over here say his name, but people just say the Americans. And I think, to be honest, it's one of the things that English normies have got right is that it doesn't make any difference who the president is. That's been proven now. That's been, I mean, like, clearly Joe Biden isn't in any real sense.
Did you see the other day, though, Biden said he like hugged Elton John and he goes, "This is the reason why we spent all that money on AIDS." I'm serious, dude. He rules. He's so funny.
Yeah.
He's always accidentally saying racist shit. It's the funniest guy. It's just another Trump presidency, but in a different style.
My favorite was when he visited that black family and he's there. He gives them chicken. He's eating a hamburger and they're eating fried chicken. Because probably in his mind, it's still 1968. And he's like, oh, you know, these Negroes probably like that chicken there.
Yeah.
It's good optics, Joe.
Between Trump and Biden, it's like, as far as comedy goes, it's like, do you really want to take a hard stance between Curly and Shemp? It's like, it's just that they're different. It's different. They're both funny. It's just like, sometimes maybe you have your favorite. Some people do. I get it. Yeah. But I like them both.
Well, I don't know about you, but I'm going to write in a true libertarian when it comes to November, and that's William
Shemp Howard.
Yes. I was going to go Joe Besser because, you know, he doesn't want the conflict, and I'm trying to stay away from the conflict these days.
Right in Ron Paul, because Scott can do the voice.
Paul. Yeah.
I want a Gary Johnson sticking his tongue out. That's what I really liked.
Oh, that was an embarrassing year. I voted for Trump that year. I got no fucking, and I thought I was doing the right thing. So,
well, the meme war of 2016 was I will still look back at that and just smile sometimes. It was such a great year in watching the fact that Pepe the Frog and the Moon Man got Trump elected.
Yeah. Oh my God. It was so awesome. Dude, one of the funniest nights ever was that debate where Trump said, yeah, because you would be in jail. Oh my God. I literally like cried laughing. I had friends over to watch it like it was sports.
Right. Yeah.
The comedic timing. It was perfect. Amazing. It was Jack Benny level.
Yeah, oh my God, I'll never forget. That was the greatest. That was like, you know, that wave speech in Fear and Loathing where he goes, we were over the crest of a high flying wave. You could see where it broke there somewhere between LA and Las Vegas or whatever. That was the moment there during the election when he turned around and said, yeah, because you would have been in jail. Oh man, I'll never feel that good again.
Yeah, that's the thing. It won't be that good this time, will it? It's not going to be that entertaining because it was new. It was like a new form of entertainment.
Yep.
It's kind of like when you take a vacation and you try to repeat all the things you did in last year's
Yeah.
vacation, and it just doesn't work the same way. It doesn't have
It's
that
like-
magic anymore.
Oh yeah, you go on vacation somewhere exotic and they have this kind of cheese that you really like, and so you take some of it home and then you eat it at home, and it's like, yeah, it just tastes like rubber.
I haven't had that specific experience, but that sounds very like a bummer.
Yeah,
that's what 2024 seems like.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Well, you guys do the podcast called History Homos. By the way, how'd you come up with that? Last question. How'd you come up with that name?
Well, it was a segment. I guess I'll give you a really quick, because we're almost done here. History lesson on the show. William was a listener of my old podcast, and it was a movie review podcast. So occasionally I would have a reason to start talking about history. And I would say, this is the History Homos section of the show. Like that was like the segment name. And so when we started the show, we decided we wanted to do a history show, and we just decided to do History Homos.
It works. I like it.
Yeah.
And it'd be funny because it's HH.
Yeah. History Homos 88 420.
Yeah, 69.
Well, I'm a fan of what you guys do. I'm a fan of the podcast. I encourage everybody, if you aren't subscribed, go check them out right now and listen to them. Also on YouTube, and follow them on all your guys' social media platforms.
We're not on YouTube.
We're not on YouTube. It's the only place
that's not you guys.
Well, that is us,
there,
but
the
we don't have
show's
full
not on there.
episodes there.
We had to stop.
Yeah, you guys have like previews and stuff.
Yes.
Yeah, occasionally, but we basically stopped using it after
Okay,
we had
fine then. I'm
going
gonna
to
unsubscribe it then. Fuck
Please.
you.
But no, the place that you want to show is www. This is my chance to plug www.rockfin. That's ROKFIN.com/historyhomos. And that is the best place to get our content. It's like YouTube, except it's racist, so it's better.
Yeah.
And also you can subscribe to our bonus content there. That's like our version of Patreon that we'll never get kicked off of because it's Rockfin.
Hopefully.
And that's how you get our bonus episodes. I literally, before we started recording this episode, I had uploaded this week's bonus episode. This is a weird, maybe the website isn't amazing. I had concede, but
I don't know what's going on here. But sorry
they'll
about
never
that.
kick us
But yes, go to
off.
rokfin.com/historyhomos then.
Yes.
Yeah.
But and yeah, we have a lot more subscribers on there, by the way, than we do on YouTube. So don't get scared away by us not spending time on YouTube. Why would we cultivate a following on YouTube just to get kicked off?
Yeah, I mean
that's what I'm doing.
We started getting loads of strikes on there, and so we just like the original reason for doing this was to stop ourselves from killing ourselves and going crazy.
Yes,
not necessarily in that order, but like we either had to make a decision to self-censor ourselves extremely hard. I think you can get away with a lot more on YouTube now than you could then.
True.
By the way, but it was just they were going through our back issues and striking those, and we're like, okay, fuck this, we're going to take all the videos down, all the episodes down, and before we lose the channel and don't have any choice. And just luckily at that time we got hooked up with Rockfin, and we've never looked back. It really is a good service.
Yeah,
I might have to check it out myself because it's I've been starting to get a couple of strikes on videos from 2022 that I posted. So it's I'll probably
that's what happens. Like
the old Check Your Brain podcast into the new millennium here of where we're going to have. But William, Scott, hey, thanks so much for doing this. I really appreciate it, and keep up the great work with the podcast and stuff. You guys do great work, and I'll keep following you guys, and I'll keep in touch with you.
Well, we'll have to have you on the show.
Yeah, anytime. I have to find something that I'm very passionate about that we could talk about. Like,
guest gets to choose a topic.
Oh gosh, I got to think. I'll have to get back to you because there's a couple of things that like have an obsession with me. I think maybe like pedophilia in the Catholic Church, and why people are so obsessed with it.
Yeah.
Okay, I haven't looked into that one for sure because a lot of people always go, "How about the Kennedy assassination?" It's like we've done it.
Actually, Vatican II. I might have to do this one. I might have to come in and do a little more research, and I want to talk about Vatican II.
Yes. That is definitely a History Homos level topic.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Well, let's do it. I'm going to do a little bit more research. I don't want to look like a retard or retard. And
next to us, you'll look great. Don't worry.
Just do the French pronunciation. Retard.
That's right. Yes. Well, thank you, everybody, for checking out this week's Check Your Brain podcast. We'll be back with you with another free episode. I want to thank Scott and William from History Homos. Go check them out at rockfin.com/History Homos and wherever you get your podcasts, as well as my podcast that goes out every Wednesday, the Check Your Brain podcast, or go to Patreon until I probably get kicked off of there too at patreon.com/Tony Mazur. Have yourselves a good one. I'll be back with you next Wednesday. Bye.